Right now, there is a basic test for journalists and for politicians, and it is a litmus test, the litmus test of our time. Donald Trump, the president of the United States, has committed his country to commit an abominable crime. He's committed the US to annexing Gaza and ethnically cleansing its entire population. This is a grave and indisputable crime. The bare minimum right now is just to state the facts. That what Donald Trump has proposed is ethnic cleansing, a fact, that's number one.
After Owen Jones urges journalists to report the facts, that is, ethnic cleansing, he names his own video. Trump promises US genocide against Gaza. Western media normalize it. Western media normalize genocide. And he names his thumbnail Trump's sick genocidal threat to Gaza. So, if according to you it's ethnic cleansing, and this is the fact, why you name it a genocide then? After urging journalists to at least report the facts. Ethnic cleansing can sometimes be moral if the result is human well-being. In fact, if you keep a peoples in an endless vicious cycle of death and suffering for your Marxist obsessions, that is in fact immoral. As expected, Donald Trump's plan to help Palestinians and restore peace in the Middle East annoyed the right people. These are jihadists and radical leftists who traditionally capitalize on the death and suffering of Palestinians and the turmoil in the Middle East for their geopolitical plots. And they are right to be upset. Trump's plan might be good for the region and Palestinians, but is very bad for their jihad. Palestinians will have a chance to break the blood cycle and have a decent life. The region will have a chance to heal through development. But jihadists will not have their caliphate, and Marxists will not be able to defeat the capitalists. In other words, humanity wins, the radicals lose. Great, if you ask me.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
No, by the way, the grin painted on Netanyahu's face, the sickening, grotesque grin on his face.
Pro-Palestinian activists for a year now tried to convince the world the Palestinian struggle is a genocide, a human rights issue. And yet, when Trump offered Palestinians a decent life away from conflict, they didn't like it. In the same way, they didn't like the liberation of Syria. Trump's proposal focuses on solving the well-being of Palestinians, but is very bad for the jihad. So obviously, Islamists and liberal jihadists wouldn't like that. They rather use the blood and tears of Palestinians for their jihad. You see, as I was always telling you from day one, the Palestinian struggle was never at its core an ethnic liberation or a human rights struggle. It was always a jihad. The radicals are cultists and like to see the world through a binary lens of good versus evil. Islamists are the children of God against the evil Jews who they must fight till the end of times. The Marxists are the good working class who must rescue the brown people from the evil capitalists, or some Marxist shit like that. These cultists, the struggle people, they live in their own mythologies. They are not practical. That's why they cannot be trusted in politics.
A short history for useful idiots. History of an alliance between the left and Islamism. This is well worth a small thread. Any resemblance to current events is perhaps not coincidental. 40 years ago, the Iranian Communist Party, the Tudeh, stood alongside the Islamists during the protests that launched the Iranian Revolution. The Tudeh was one of the most important communist parties in the Middle East. Having great influence in intellectual and working class circles, an ally of circumstance with the Islamists at the time of the revolution, he was at the origin of the first demonstrations which brought down the Shah. In October 1977, the 10 nights, which marked the beginning of the protests, were a succession of literary and poetic evenings, transformed into political platforms, organized at the German Cultural Institute in Tehran. There were 15,000 people every night, and only 500 Islamists, says Mo, a Tudeh activist. These Islamist groups were not taken seriously. They had a very low level of socio-economic understanding. In 1979, the Tudeh's striking force and influence made it indispensable to the Islamists in bringing down the Shah. For their part, the communists identified with the revolutionary and third world discourse of the charismatic Khomeini. When the Ayatollah landed in Tehran on February 1, 1979, cheered by the crowd, the Tudeh officially recognized him as the leader of the revolution. They then thought they could easily manipulate him. In the months preceding the Shah's flight, doubts arose in the ranks of the Tudeh as to Khomeini's true intention. Iraj Eskandari, the party's first secretary, advocated an alliance with secular forces. He was dismissed from his post in January 1979. As early as 1980, Khomeini got rid of his closest allies, the liberal Islamists, considered counter-revolutionaries, before attacking the parties. Thousands of senior officials and high-ranking officers were executed. The entire left applauded these mass executions. The Tudeh soon suffered Islamist repression in turn. Khomeini became aware of the party's penetration of the country's institutions. A campaign of repression and mass execution was unleashed against the communists. In February 1983, the Tudeh was banned.
Only if we recognize reality efficiently, we can ever hope to solve problems. First, I want you to investigate whether this statement is true. Only if we recognize reality efficiently, we can ever hope to solve problems. This statement is absolutely true. So, no matter our ideology, no matter our wishful thinking, no matter how the world ought to be, no matter what Plato said, no matter what is the best case scenario in some paradise, this statement is still true. Let me repeat this statement. Only if we recognize reality efficiently, we can ever hope to solve problems. Why is that? For a very simple reason. Because only if we understand the patterns of nature, we can never hope to use these patterns efficiently to solve problems. So, if I think this is 2 meters, and I try to go to my roof, and I use this to go to my roof, I won't be able to achieve my task, because this is not 2 meters, this is a couple of centimeters. Okay? So, now we need to recognize certain facts of reality, and those are the following. Fact number 1. Jihadists will continue the struggle or the jihad until Israel is annihilated. Is this statement true? This statement is absolutely true. Even if you give Palestinians, you make Palestine to Dubai, give them 10 million. It's 10 million in their pocket. 5 Ferraris give them. Each person 5 Ferraris. This statement is still true. Jihadists will continue the struggle until Israel is annihilated. Because it's in their scriptures. Okay. Israel is in the center of the caliphate. If Israel exists, their religious mythology doesn't follow. The footage I'm showing you right now is from Qatar. Okay, they have everything. Did they stop the jihad? No, they didn't. Okay. Qatar, as we speak, is the number 1 or number 2 country that supports terrorism. Okay, so that is one true statement. The second true statement is no leftist so-called liberation or human rights plan will ever work because this issue was never at its core a liberation or human rights issue. That statement is again true. Let me repeat this statement. No leftist so-called liberation or human rights plan will ever work because this issue was never at its core a liberation or human rights issue. It manifests this way. The liberation and human rights is the effect, not the cause. Okay. Now, Donald Trump, okay, with his optimistic, naive way, he feels in his gut that this is true because he's a businessman. When you are to invest somewhere and you give your good money, you don't invest in ideas like leftists do. I please Plato and therefore fuck reality. Fuck what will happen to people after I virtue signal. This is how leftists work because they never invest money. Leftists stopped the war in Vietnam, and when the Americans left, the communists executed 200,000 Vietnamese. Did leftists bother? No. The revolution was completed. Okay, they were Nobel. Now they will have a good story to say to their grandchildren. I was a revolutionary and I saved. Okay, these people care for ideas, not people. They are not practical. They don't give a rat's ass what will happen. So the radical leftists were with Che Guevara in Cuba. Okay, they made the revolution. Oh, we were cool. We were revolutionaries. We made our small revolution. Yes, but go now to Cuba to see what was the result of your revolution after years. But now they don't care. Nobody even know. They don't care what's happening in Cuba. The only thing they cared for was their hip revolution. It was nice when you are a hippie to take LSD, hear cool music, and be for the cool hip revolution. Because you are cool and you are against the man, you are against the capitalist, and you are cool. This is the leftists. They don't care about practice. They don't care what happens to the world after the revolution stops. But Donald Trump, because he's a businessman and he gives hard money and he wants to invest in Gaza, because Donald Trump, I know how he thinks because I'm also a businessman. I call that the businessman virus. When I made a business a couple of years ago, okay, and this business was successful, then this virus came to my mind, and now when I go out, everything I see, I have the impression it's mine. Look, one garden. This can become a garden bar. This is how you see the world. You see the world all opportunities. So Trump, when he wants to solve something, he sees Gaza, an endless death field. And he thinks, okay, we need to fix Gaza. But how can I convince investors when every couple of years jihadis will do the same? So we need to get rid of the jihadis. So people can invest in Gaza, build Gaza, okay, and help people. Everybody wins. This is how Trump thinks. Okay. And Trump thinks with the mindset that everybody wins. This is his mindset. Everybody wins. Okay. But in his equation, he just thinks human well-being. Money, development, human well-being, everybody's happy. This is what he thinks. He doesn't take into account, we need to make a jihad, or we need to defeat the capitalists. These factors are not in his equations. Okay, so Trump is good for the people, not good for the jihadists and the jihad. Okay, so where was? Okay, so Trump, as a businessman, he made a plan and he said, what is the problem now? Palestinians, these poor people had enough suffering in their life. They lost limbs, burned alive. Gaza is a death camp as we speak now. But the problem is that even if, exactly because the facts I mentioned earlier are true, even if you make a two-state solution, the same will happen again and again and again in an eternal vicious cycle. So let me repeat now the facts and think again if you agree with these facts. Fact number one. Jihadists will continue the struggle until Israel is annihilated. So, if you give a two-state solution to jihadists, everybody knows that this cycle of blood will continue forever, because these people will not stop until Israel is annihilated. They don't want ethnic liberation. They don't want a country to live happily. They want Jews to not rule over Muslims. It's ideological, the issue. Okay. Now, fact number two. No leftist so-called liberation or human rights plan will ever work, because this issue was never at its core a liberation or human rights issue. Now, if you take these facts of reality, okay, now you can make a plan that can be effective based on the facts, not on wishful thinking.